My friends, we are in the kitchen today. And we're going to talk about our children who are leaving home, who are starting up a new location, who will need some skills that they can take with them to their new location. So, how are we going to go about teaching them those skills? Will we have a step by step, or will we practice it daily? So, let's have a conversation about that. I was sitting here and looking at my calendar, not just for meals today, but I'm sitting here at my kitchen table doing some of the things that I normally do. And while I'm doing that, you'll see I have my coffee, and this is my time just to spend thinking about things. And as I was thinking about things this morning, I had the opportunity last week to spend time with my grandchildren, which I had not been able to do for quite a while. And in watching them, playing with them, cooking with them, doing a lot of fun things with them, I was also thinking about the fact that have I contributed to preparing them for life once they leave their home? Now, as we sit in the kitchen, I talk about all the time that I do things in the kitchen and we do things for the kitchen right here at Ebony, Ivy, and Thyme. And as I talk to my children, my daughter and my son, and I was thinking about some of the things that we used to do and laughing and giggling about some of the funny stories that we had, that I was preparing them along the way. They said, well, Mom, you always had us in the kitchen. And we were either fixing our grilled cheese sandwiches, or we were helping you with the salad, or we were cutting up vegetables, or whatever the case may have been. Often they would actually cook breakfast, and those biscuits that you see me use a lot, sometimes they would even prepare the biscuits themselves. And so it gave them an opportunity along the way to kind of get real familiar with the kitchen. So as I was thinking about that, I started to think, next month in May, we will celebrate Mother's Day. And what better way to celebrate Mother's Day than by talking about our children and our grandchildren, our legacy. What are we leaving? And so I started thinking about the fact that one of my grandchildren, who's about to turn 15, the years between that 15 and the 17 or 18 when they graduate from high school is going to go by very quickly. And while he's my only grandson, I have to think about the fact that when he leaves home, will his mom and I have prepared him well? So he's with me sometimes, and of course he's home 90% of the time. But in the process of where he loves coming to Mimi and Papa, how can I help to contribute to him having a smooth transition as he prepares to leave home? Whether he goes to college, whether he gets an apartment, and gets a job, of course, and an apartment. But so many times our children leave our homes and they're just not quite ready. And very often the yo-yo effect comes about. That's where they leave, and before you know it, they're back home. and they leave, and before you know it, they're back home. Or they end up in relationships with people just because they're trying to find some balancing factor that will help them find their way through their kitchen or through their home, the place that they're trying to make home. They're looking for home. And so let's talk about how we can prepare our young people and get them ready to face the world. Because the world that we live in today has so many challenges. And we want our children to be, we can't prepare them for everything, but we want them to have enough of a background that they are able to move and transition fairly smoothly. Now, of course, we're going to be there in the background to help. And if they need us, they know they can call. But what do we do? How do we get them prepared? Well, we're going to sit down right here at the kitchen table and we're going to have that discussion. We're going to do it right here in the kitchen. And we're going to prepare them right here in the kitchen. This is going to be the starting place of where it's going to be fun. They're going to love coming into the kitchen. They're going to love seeing the love. They're going to feel the warmth in the kitchen. And they're going to want to duplicate that once they go out on their own. And I know that's the case because that was always my feeling in my heart. I wanted them, my children, to be able to carry the love of our home into their home. And they have certainly been able to do that. And so we are going to talk about some of the things. And I'm not saying I'm the total sage. I'm just going to share with you things that we've done, things that we've talked about. And I hope you're going to be in on that conversation because most of us out there are either in several categories. You're either one of the young people who are out there trying to find their way. You may be even a high school student who wants to go out on their own, but maybe there's some things you haven't learned and you need to talk about, questions you need to feel safe enough to ask. You want to be that person who can go out on their own, know they've got backup with their family just in case, because it's okay. It's okay to have a moment, to hit a bump in the road. It's okay to do that. But you should also be able to have enough of a background to survive the day-to-day types of things. And there are just some things you shouldn't even have to think about because you've been practicing it lightly. You know, no one forces you to do certain things, but I didn't force my children to cook or to work, you know, to really work in the kitchen as such. You know, occasionally they would wash dishes if they weren't doing homework. My son, usually his thing was to get the trash out and occasionally put the dishes up. Occasionally I would have them, they knew they had a few chores where they had to vacuum the floor, or they may have had to mop the kitchen floor, or whatever it was that they had to do. But that was just to help me so that I could come in from work and have a more peaceful, clean environment to get things ready for the rest of the evening. And when we work together here, right here in this kitchen, it starts to be a part of them. They start to learn that process, and then they're able to share it with someone else. So we're going to be sharing together things that we can do in our kitchen that's going to better prepare our children. And this show is going to be called In the Kitchen. This electric skillet is probably close to almost 50 years old. And I say that because I took it to college. And since then, I've had a successful, I'd say pretty successful marriage of over 45 years. I've had my children. I've had a career that I retired from after 30 plus years. And, it's gotten me through some moments. It has been through family gatherings. It's been through the one pot meal, even though we didn't call them one pot meals back in the day. We were just trying to prepare our dinners so that we could get it on the table before it was late and our children needed to be able to go to sleep at a reasonable time. So we used every tool we had in order to put that dinner on the table. Now, we're going to be doing that tonight. And we're going to talk about our children. We're going to start tonight off with preparing some rice. And we're making a burrito bowl. And I love going to Moe's or to Chipotle. For me, it depends on which direction I happen to be driving in as to which one I will go to. But you know what? When you can make your own right here at home, and when you see how quickly it can come together using this electric skillet, oh my goodness, you may never go to those places ever again. And so we're rinsing our rice, making sure that it's ready for the microwave. I put in 1 cup of rice. I added in 1.5 cups of water. And one thing to remember when you're rinsing your rice, you're rinsing it until that water runs pretty clear. Now, it's not going to be perfectly clear, but you will see what it looks like from the beginning and then what it looks like once it gets to that clearer stage. Now, these are my 3 helpers in the kitchen. Don't you love their aprons? And actually, I have a 4th one, but at the time this picture was taken, she wasn't born yet. And well, I won't say she wasn't born, but she was a tiny baby, and not quite ready for her apron picture. So I'll have to show her later on. But these little rascals will join me in the kitchen anytime, and they're so much fun. Well, let's wash off the top of the cans as we add into our mixture. We've got corn, we've got beans, and I'm using pinto beans rather than black beans. Also, I'm using these red gold tomato, diced tomatoes, as well as Hunt's tomato sauce, and I'm only using half a can of the Hunt's tomato sauce. Now, of course, you can use more if you like yours more tomatoey, but that's as far as I went. I'm taking the time to rinse each of these cans before I pour them out. So I have some sweet golden corn that we're going to be using, as well as we have some Bush's pinto beans. And the beans are great, but you know what? They need to be rinsed as well because they do have a lot of starch. And so we're going to take those, we're going to pour them into this colander and not only just give them a shake and let them drain, but I'm actually going to wash them off with cool water just to make sure that I get as much of that starch off of them as I possibly can. There we go. So I'm going to put them into a bowl or a container until we're ready to use them. Everyone has a kitchen beginning. And for me, my true in the kitchen moment came when I was able to sit in the kitchen while my mother cooked. My mom was a great cook. Not only did she cook at home, she often had people to request that she prepare dishes for them for whatever their special occasions were. And I don't know if you know anything much about African American churches, but back in the day, there was always some type of either fish fry or chicken fry that was going on. Something was going on to raise money for whatever may have been going on at church, whether it was raising money to feed those in need, or it was raising money to do some kind of building or project. And a group of ladies would get together, they would have a big ticket sale, and then the cooking began. And mom was very often a part of that group. And so I learned from she and several other ladies what it meant to go into that kitchen. But the irony of it was, you know, they just kind of ignored me basically. They did what they needed to do. And if I asked, can I try this or can I do that for you? They would give me a quick, oh, sure, you can do that. They do a couple of minutes of showing me what they had been doing, and off I would go and I would continue to work. Now, at that point, when I was tired and ready to move on, no one got upset. I was just allowed to stop for the time being, and if I decided I wanted to come back, I certainly could. But as a child, I learned quite a few skills just from being in the midst of other cooks. You can learn a lot doing nothing but sitting in the kitchen while the cooking is taking place. And the conversation is always wonderful in the kitchen. Oftentimes, there are funny stories, things we probably might not, maybe some things we shouldn't hear, but certainly the conversations were a lot of fun. And as I think back on those days, I think very fondly of my mom and the warmth that she gave, and the love that she gave right there in the kitchen to me, as well as anyone who came into the kitchen. They were always family. This is the absolute best skillet, an electric skillet. It's wonderful. You can use it for everything. And this dish tonight is going to come together very quickly. First of all, you're going to add in a tablespoon or so of oil. In this case, I use some chicken fat because I just happen to have some in the refrigerator. So I'm just putting in my tablespoon of chicken fat. And that's what I'm going to cook it in because I think it's going to give it great flavor. And I'm just going to go down the list and start adding. I'm going to add the vegetables. I'm going to add the tomato sauce, the diced tomatoes. I'm going to add the water and the chicken, and then put in the seasonings. Then you're going to put the top on it, and you're going to let it cook and let all of those vegetables and the chicken and the beans and the corn, you're going to let all of that come together, and it is going to make the best combination and the best Tex-Mex mixture that you would ever want to serve yourself or your buddies if you have buddies at school. So this is one of those dishes that we want our loved ones, our young ones, to learn how to put together. And they can do it. You know, they can start doing these kind of things when they're small. And if you start while they're young, they will continue those practices as they get older. And then we're just going to let it simmer. And while that's simmering, we're going to talk about some other things. Post all of the ingredients because literally you put all of the ingredients into the skillet and you let it go. You let it cook, you let it bubble until it gets to the consistency you like. You'll notice that I've added in some cooked chicken that was from a rotisserie chicken that I just pulled off, chopped up, and it's ready to go. It's bubbling well. I am just really impressed because after all of these years, it's still working. Now I'm tasting to see if I need to add more chili powder or more garlic, salt, or pepper. And you adjust as you go, which is a part of cooking. So there's our chili powder. We're adding that in and putting some more in because I had added just a little bit, but it's always better to add a little at the beginning. And if you need to add more, you can certainly do that. Now, what college student would not love having this dish ready to go? It took just a matter of a short amount of time to put it all together. The longest part it took were cutting the onions and the green peppers. And once they were done, the dish comes together very simply. So now I'm adding a little salt because that's the one thing that I'm very careful of. Because very often tomato sauce or diced tomatoes can be just a tad bit salty. So that's what we're doing. And I'm just kind of looking around, playing around. You know what? I'm thinking I need a little cumin. It needs a little more smoky flavor to have that mauve taste that I like. And I want it to bubble just enough to where it gets just a tiny bit almost creamy. So I'm hitting it with some cumin, and I like cumin. I like that smokiness of cumin. So that's what we're doing. Then we're going to put the top on the pepper because I think we have enough chili pepper. We're going to give this another stir and let it continue to bubble. Now the rice is ready. So it's just going to be the matter of everything getting good and hot and allowing those flavors to meld together. You know what? I'm thinking that probably the big guy and I are going to have our portions tonight, but I think we're going to have enough for another night. And I might have to come up with a round two dish because, this would be really good. Tonight we're serving it on rice, but the next time you see this, it may be in some type of burrito. Now, I don't know about you, but my mouth is watering and I am ready to get this on the plate. You can see how nice and cooked down it is, how everything has just come together. And oh my goodness, it smells wonderful. Now, I went back, gave it another taste to make sure that I checked my salt and pepper and chili powder. And if you like yours really spicy, you could even throw in some hot sauce. And probably the big guy will do exactly that. So what I'm doing is just turning it down a little bit so that it won't bubble all of the liquids away because we like those liquids as we put it over our rice. And I'm placing the mixture over my burrito mixture, as we can say, over my rice. And I'm adding in some fresh tomatoes. Now, those fresh tomatoes are just going to give it a lift because we've cooked the mixture in the tomato sauce, with the diced tomatoes. But the fresh tomatoes is just going to add that certain freshness and lift that this bowl, this burrito bowl, is going to need. So I'm going to get it wiped off and then I'm going to show you what it's going to look like. Does that not look delicious? Now, you can decide. You could even have this and have no rice, but we're serving ours over rice. You could serve this and have it with just chips. Use some corn chips and serve it like that. You could certainly add some sour cream or some shredded cheese if you wanted to add those things to it. And you could do that. But I didn't want to add the additional calories, so I'm not doing that tonight. Now, I've got the second bowl and one for me and one for the big guy. So I'm going to add those tomatoes and just give mine a little lift and a little freshness. So there we go. And you saw that skillet. That was enough that if you were a college student, you could actually share this with one of your buddies, which would be so cool to do. You and your roommates. So I had a few chips. I'm just adding a few chips around it. I think the big guy will like the crunch. And so he's going to get most of the chips because let me tell you, earlier today, he got into those chips because he didn't know I was planning to use them for dinner. So while that's okay, I only had a few, and that was all I really needed. So I've got mine, he's got his, and dinner is ready. So we are going to be sitting down to dinner in just a moment. And I tell you what, how beautiful. Look at those colors. It smells good, it tastes good, and you're going to love it. This 50-year-old electric skillet still has it. And thanks, Mom, for loving me enough to send me to college with this skillet because it sure did cook a lot of meals, from soup to greens to frying chicken or even cooking hot dogs and having beanie weenies. But you know what? It worked and it fed a lot of people. Thank you for joining me today in the kitchen. I'm looking forward to our conversations that we're going to have over the next few weeks, where we are going to take an in-depth look at the role of the kitchen. We're going to look at why the kitchen is so important, and we're going to look within ourselves to see how our mothers prepared us for stepping into the kitchen of life, and how we can use our kitchen time to encourage our children for the life ahead. So come back next week to In the Kitchen. Have a blessed and wonderful week.